All right, so I just want to kind of backtrack here. I'm going to go through day 1 and day 2 of free agency because there were some moves that I really liked, and there were some moves that I thought were just trash. Like my hair. Jeez Louise. Pretend that fits a little better. Okay, so I've got them brought up here, so let's just go through them real quick and nice and tidy here. So the first one that I really like is Michael Galp. He's my guy. You know he's my guy. He re-signed with the Dallas Cowboys, $62.5 million over 5 years. So that translates into what, like 12 something? That is absolutely peanuts for this guy, especially when you consider what other wide receivers of his caliber are going for. So I think the Cowboys moved Amari Cooper, who is making way too much money. He's definitely going to be downgraded going into the Brown system where he's got Kareem Hunt, he's got Nick Chubb, he's even got Dearness Johnson, who doesn't suck, and he's got Baker Mayfield. So I think he's going into an offense where there's going to be like 200 less attempts. And if he was getting that target share that he was getting in Dallas, it's just not happening. So yeah, they stole him. He's a beast in waiting. Now that Cooper's gone, they moved that 20 million and they're only paying Gallup, who honestly I think is about Amari Cooper's, I think he's going to be just as good as Amari Cooper is in this setting, and they're only going to pay him 12. So they're winning big time. And like I said, compared to other deals that these wide receivers got in the last 2 days, they stole him. Another deal that I like is DJ Chark. He knows he's worth more than the $10 million he signed for, and that's why he only signed for 1 year. It's a prove-it deal. He's 6'4", 6'5", super fast out of LSU. The guy is quick. He really wanted to be a Jag, and there's not too many players in this league who can say that. Just 3 or 4 days ago, he was out there running drills with Trevor Lawrence. So, like, he wanted to be playing with Trevor Lawrence, and the Jaguars just didn't make it happen. In fact, it looks like we'll get to it. Anyway, last season, he was basically on the IR the entire season. Same with the year before. He wasn't healthy then either. So now he's off to Detroit. Trevor Lawrence didn't have the season we thought he was going to have, clearly. He basically had a very Jared Goff-esque season, so he's not going to see an uptick in, quarterback play. I'm assuming Trevor Lawrence is going to figure it out. He's going to be a superstar. However, off of 2021, he wasn't very great. This does hurt Amon-Ra St. Brown, who everyone was like, oh, he's the man. He's so good. I'm not too high on ARSB. They signed Khalif Raymond again. Big deal. No, it was Josh Reynolds. You can drop Khalif Raymond. Josh Reynolds, big whoop. DeAndre Swift is going to be healthy. That's a problem for any wide receiver in Detroit. I just mean, like, if Swift is healthy, it's going to be a lot of ground game or balls to Swift. So Chark was smart to bet on himself, only sign a 1-year deal, get 10 mil, and get ready to make 15 the next season. Mike Williams. At first, when I saw he was making $20 million, I couldn't believe it. I thought, what an overpay. This is wild. This is, the Chargers are going to have 2 top 5 paid receivers in one locker room. Like, that's wild. And then the other deals started coming through. So, I mean, he's making $60 million in 3 seasons. So about $20 million per. I think this season it's 14 against the cap, then 19, and then 27, I think. At first, like I said, I was like, I can't believe this. That's just way too much money. The guy only played well for like 6 weeks. He was wide receiver 1 for the first, up until about Halloween. And then he fell off a cliff. This was a career year. Luckily for him, it was a contract year. He still only put up like 1,150 yards, 9 touchdowns because he's got that big frame. And it's not like he wasn't out there playing. He still played in 14 of 17 games. So he was out there quite a bit. And he had Justin Herbert throwing him the ball. So his stats need to get better for him to warrant this 20 mil. But when you see some of the deals I didn't like this offseason, or I guess free agency already, you're going to realize that $20 million is kind of like a steal too. Russell Gage, $30 million, 3 years. The Atlanta Falcons went from having Julio, Calvin Ridley, and Russell Gage to Frank Darby and Olamide Zacchaeus. Like, just absolute trash in Atlanta. And is $10 million about right for Russell Gage? Yes. Is it maybe a little bit too much to be the wide receiver 3 when he's wide receiver 2 capable, but the wide receiver 3 in Tampa Bay? Who cares? You are shoring up your wide receiver core. Tom Brady's back. I'm assuming Leonard Fournette's going to come back too. Ryan Jensen's already re-signed. Tom Brady texted him before he let the world know that he's coming back to play football. So they're going to have Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, who's on that franchise tag, and Russell Gage. They're laughing. And I'm assuming that they think that There won't be a long-term deal with Chris Godwin. Even with Tom back, I don't expect Tom to play in 2023. So if Godwin leaves then, Russell Gage will be your 2. Mike Evans is there for another couple seasons. So, like, you're good. So I think that's a really good deal. You're signing him now to be your 3, but you're only going to have to pay him $10 million to be your 2 in 2023. I think that's a really, really good deal. James Conner re-signed in Arizona. The guy was supposed to be the 1B to Chase Edmonds last season, and he took off. He had like 1,150 yards. He only played like, I'm making it up, but like 14 games, 12 games. He was hurt quite a bit. He had that ankle injury that sat him out for quite a while. And he scored 18 touches. He scored 18 touchdowns. Stud. He took over. We were all excited about Chase Edmonds finally getting his own backfield. He had to share it with Kenyon Drake and David Johnson, maybe even Chris Johnson. I don't know how far he goes back. But it was the James Conner show. And they're only paying him $7 million a season for 3 seasons. So if you're going to get a starting running back, even if you want to use him as like a 60-40, 70-30 guy and have Benjamin, or if you want to bring somebody else in late in the draft, you were stealing him for $7 million a year. Melvin Gordon was getting 8 last season, and he was a 50-50 guy. He was getting 8, and they still decided to draft Javonte Williams. So, like, you are stealing James Conner at $7 million per. Now we're going to talk about his counterpart, Chase Edmonds. Chase went to the Miami Dolphins. Right now, he's the outright RB1, unless you want to count on Myles Gaskins, which I wouldn't tell you to do. However, they're going to bring somebody else in, whether it's a guy like Leonard Fournette or a guy like, I don't even know. Even if you want to bring in Raheem Mostert, I think that makes a lot of sense because Mike McDaniel was the OC in San Fran. He got the best out of Raheem Mostert, and now he's the head coach in Miami. Chase Edmonds isn't going to be an outright 1. I don't even think he'll be the 1A in a tandem. He'll definitely be the 1B. It'll be like a 50 or a 40% share, kind of like what it was in Arizona, but it worked. And he's getting 6.3. He's getting a 12.6 over 2 seasons. So that's a good value. And like, he's got the Jets. I think he still put up over 1,000 yards and he scored 5 touchdowns. And it was in limited work too, because he was out a couple games. His back was sore, and he was, the second back in that backfield. So I really like that deal for the Miami Dolphins. For the Jets, I really like the fact that they picked up Braxton Berrios and it's only costing them $6 million a season. He's quite young. He's 26, so he's quite young. He had huge chemistry. It was evident between him and Zach Wilson, especially toward the end of the stretch where Zach started kind of feeling out how to play NFL football, and he found his favorite receiver. It may be Elijah Moore if Elijah Moore is healthy this season. I'm assuming he will be. But it wasn't Corey Davis. It wasn't Jamison Crowder. It was Braxton Berrios. Berrios scored like 4 touchdowns in the last 3 weeks, which is something that no other New York Jet can say. So the fact that he's coming back just to rework on that chemistry and at a very fair price tag, I think that's easily a steal. Another guy I really liked was the Mitchell Trubisky signing. I mean, he's in Pittsburgh now. I don't like the fact that immediately after the next day, Tyrod Taylor signs a more lucrative deal to be the backup essentially in New York. However, with the incentives, Trubisky can hit it. It's just I never see these guys hit all their incentives or all their escalators. So I'm assuming it's just basically a $14 million for 2 seasons. Solid deal. He gets a second chance. Pittsburgh was immediately out on the Deshaun Watson trade rumors just because I think with the Big Ben thing years ago in Alabama, they couldn't afford to kind of take on that PR. And, well, I mean, Trubisky is the Nickelodeon MVP, right? So, I mean, pretty squeaky clean image, which is very, very important to teams like this. And I think we can all agree that Matt Nagy basically did everything he could to ruin Trubisky, at least as a young leader, maybe not necessarily his career, but definitely as a young leader. And Tomlin's not going to do that. Tomlin is an incredible coach. Everyone knows that. And Trubisky is going to have a clean slate, and he's better than Mason Rudolph. So that's what really matters. J.D. McKissick, Buffalo Bills. $7 million, I think, for 2 seasons. Bills stole him too because he's one of the best third down backs in the entire league. He's shown that when he was playing for Washington last season, and he really hurt Antonio Gibson's value because Gibson, who we assume has hands, I mean, he played wide receiver at Memphis for 3 seasons. We're assuming that he would have really good hands, and J.D. McKissick was on the field for those specific scripted plays. This significantly impacts Devin Singletary. So if you have shares of him, get whatever if you can get a second for Devin Singletary, now's the time to do it. Just do it because he's going to lose almost all of the work through there. And this ruins Zach Moss. Zach Moss is as good as gone. If there's a 5th round in your rookie drafts, see if you can get like the 506 for Zach Moss. The last one that I really like is Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy is now on his 4th team? He was in Minnesota, the Saints, the Broncos, the Panthers, and 5th team, and now the Dolphins. I might even be missing one. He's been floating around. T2 Gloves cannot. I hope he's renting and not buying these places because he's going to default on all these mortgages, especially because he's only getting $6.5 million this season. This puts a lot of pressure on Tua, which honestly they need. He's not necessarily Mike McDaniels' guy. So the fact that Teddy's there to maybe help out, I think it's awesome. I don't think that McDaniels is like, we'll get a guy like Teddy who isn't necessarily known for his arm, isn't known for his scrambling ability, and we're going to hand it off to Chase Edmonds. So I think he's just more there to provide a presence, to provide a really good backup option, and just try and get the most out of Tua. Now, here are some of the deals that I hate. Originally, I thought I hated the Mike Williams deal. I don't anymore because I hate the Christian Kirk deal. He went to the Jags. He was a free agent with upside. Not wide receiver 1 upside. He was basically the wide receiver 3 on his team. I had DeAndre Hopkins and AJ Green ahead of him. Yes, I know he put up better stats than AJ Green, but he's an inside guy. He's got wide receiver 2 upside. Honestly, he's got more speed than Russell Gage, but I might prefer Russell Gage to Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk is getting more than double what Russell Gage is getting. Christian Kirk, $21 million per season. He is getting top 3 money right now. He got more than Mike Williams. I would much prefer Mike Williams. He's the bigger frame. He scores touchdowns. Christian Kirk had 950 yards and 5 touchdowns. And he's playing with Kyler Murray. He's no slouch. That's not okay. He's getting the 3rd most money. DeAndre Hopkins and Julio Jones are the only guys who are making more than him. There's a reason why Davante Adams doesn't want to be signing the franchise tag, because the franchise tag is only worth $20 million. And you're telling me that Christian Kirk is worth more than him? Come on. I'm assuming Davante gets signed in the next couple of days here to 30 plus, but there's something wrong with this deal. The Jaguars basically, they ruined the whole free agency market for everybody, because now all these teams are like, well, we have to scale it off of Christian Kirk. They also did this to Zay Jones. He's also a Jaguar. He is getting $10 million per for 3 seasons, $30 million in 3 seasons, 546 yards and 1 touchdown, playing with Derek Carr, who basically led the league in receiving or in throwing yards. So what's going on? I saw a stat yesterday that said that Kirk and Zay Jones put together something like, I think it was 1,600 yards and 6 touchdowns or whatever it was this last season. They are committed to making $114 million guaranteed. Calvin Johnson had, 1,700 yards and 11 or 12 touchdowns or whatever it was. He had more yards in one season, one man, and he only made $112 million in his career. Something is wrong. Another deal I absolutely can't stand to look at is Will Dissly in the Seattle Seahawks. $24 million over 3 years to be the backup tight end. People might have already forgot that they got Noah Fant in the Russell Wilson trade, but the Seahawks shouldn't have forgot that. He's getting $8 million to maybe play, 50% of the snaps. With Drew Lock, they might run a lot of 2 tight end sets, but $8 million, Noah Fant needs to be getting that money as soon as he's up, because if they lose Noah Fant in this deal, as soon as his contract's up, the Hawks have to be pretty embarrassed. I don't see it. In 14 games, it's not like he wasn't healthy. The year before he wasn't healthy, where he blew his ankle or his Achilles in week 1 or week 2. This most recent season, he played 14 games. He had 21 catches, 1.5 catches per game for 230 yards and only 1 touchdown, playing with Russell Wilson. That's unacceptable. And the Dolphins kind of screwed up when they signed Cedric Wilson. He's making over $7 million a season, $23 million in 3 seasons. And who is he? He was arguably wide receiver 5 for the Cowboys. In no order, they've got CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, Amari Cooper, Noah Brown, Cedric Wilson, Dalton Schultz. if I was to compare him to, another position, I'd say he was the Blake Jarwin of that wide receiver core. And he's getting 7+ per season. He's like 26 or 27. This is obviously his second deal. He had some decent games where guys were out, but he was also playing with Dak, and Dak is light years above Tua. So do with that what you will. And then of course there were some deals that I'm impartial on. I want to see how they play out. For instance, Zach Ertz to the Arizona Cardinals. $32 million over 3 seasons. Tight ends got paid these last 2 years. 2 seasons ago, Hunter Henry and Johnny Smith both got $12.5 million per season. So this is about where tight ends go. Frankly, I think it's way too much. Those guys, neither of those two that we just mentioned had a season. It was yucky. It's a little pricey, but Kyler was obviously using him. And that's what's really important. There's no AJ Green. There's no Christian Kirk. There's no Chase Edmonds. Kyler's going to need some options. Right now, it's DeAndre Hopkins, James Conner, and Rondale Moore. So Zach Ertz is going to play a big part in this. I don't love the Evan Ingram deal. I think the $9 million is okay in Jacksonville. I really do. However, I don't know why Balky signed all of these middling pass catchers. Trevor Lawrence is supposed to be the best quarterback in the NFL in the next couple seasons. He is a generational talent. That's what they drafted him to be. We thought, okay, rookie season, he doesn't have the weapons there, and that's how they got him, right? They lost enough games to get Trevor Lawrence, essentially. In the offseason, we're going to bring in a whole bunch of weapons. They brought in Christian Kirk, who's honestly, he can run outside, but he's a slot receiver. They brought in Zay Jones, basically a slot receiver. They've got Laviska Shenault, slot receiver. And they brought in Evan Ingram, who's basically a slot receiver. He's a bigger slot receiver. He gets a little bit of separation, but in the middle of the field, are they not planning on throwing the ball outside of the numbers? I don't know why they did this to Trevor Lawrence. They really impeded basically his progression in the league, and that's not fair to him. And somebody who owns him in fantasy leagues isn't going to sell him cheap because he's Trevor Lawrence, but like maybe a month or two into next season they will, because they did not do anything to set him up. Evan Ingram is getting tight end 12 money, which to me, I don't have him being as the 12th best tight end. Top 20, maybe. He's not a starting tight end, but he's getting starting tight end money. D'Onta Foreman also got paid. Not a lot, $2 million over 1 season. And he's going to the Carolina Panthers. Now, he did run for more than 4 yards per carry, but they had an awesome O-line, and even an injured Derrick Henry basically ran for 4 yards per carry in that game that he probably shouldn't have been playing, but he did. This kills Chuba Hubbard. Chuba ran for like 365 or something, yards per carry. He ran really well when given the opportunities. Everybody and their parents knew that he was going to be running the ball. It wasn't going to be Sam Darnold tossing it. So they were very obviously scripted plays, but I didn't hate what I saw out of a rookie not expected to be starting. This hurts Chuba. Now, is D'Onta Foreman an RB1? No. Did he put up a couple RB1 games when Derrick Henry was out? Sure, but you can't count on him to be an RB1. He's only making $2 million, which is honestly kind of a joke if the Panthers trade for Deshaun Watson. If the Panthers trade for Deshaun Watson, I'm assuming that Christian McCaffrey is in that deal. That might be the only way you would ever move Christian McCaffrey, in my opinion, because he is such a godlike talent, he's almost too muscular or too agile for his own body. Like that's how he keeps getting all these soft tissue injuries, because he makes moves that people his size aren't supposed to be able to make. If you're moving Christian McCaffrey and picks, I'm sure, to get Deshaun Watson, and D'Onta Foreman is going to be your starter, and maybe you'll draft a guy like, I don't love Isaiah Spiller, but Kenneth Walker or even Breece Hall, and you're paying your RB1 or like RB1B $2 million, you're laughing. So anyway, guys, those are some of the free agent acquisitions that I loved, I hated, I was indifferent on. Thank you so much for checking it out. Make sure to check out underdogfantasy.com and use promo code FWW to get a 100% deposit match guarantee. Check out NFLWaiverWire.com. We're throwing up all of our new articles up there. Check us out on Twitter, NFL Waiver Wire. Thank you so much, guys. I'll check you out in the next one.